Congratulations on your ASC Award nomination for the Boston Strangler.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be nominated by my peers. It means a lot to me.
Yeah. So I'd love to, start at the beginning, and talk about what drew you to the project, how you got involved, and how you, really came up with the aesthetic that you wanted for this movie.
I've known the director Matt Ruskin for many years. We've been friends, and I shot his first movie. Uh, I shot one of his previous movies, Crown Heights, and when I'd read the script for Boston Strangler. I'd read a few iterations of it over the years as he was developing the project, and so I was kind of deeply involved with it, and just found it fascinating from the very beginning. I was really intrigued by it, and he had a couple different scripts floating around, and I thought, like, this is the one, let's
Yeah.
go make this. So I was really excited.
Yeah. Well, what was your approach like? This is a period piece. How did that inform how you wanted to shoot it?
Well, we were heavily inspired by sort of a lot of photojournalism at the time, and there was a desire to make this look like something that might have been shot from the era, and to be in the tradition of a thriller and a psychological thriller. So we knew we wanted something dark and with sort of a heavy aesthetic. And I really like leaned into the idea of this being something that looks like it was shot on film in the era, in creating something that felt like it was. The movie takes place in 1960s, from 63 I think until 68 or 69, and I was really interested in creating a feeling that it was a movie that was shot during that era, and was heavily influenced by some of the thrillers that were shot during that time, like All the President's Men, and all these, a bunch of Pacula movies, and I love Gordon Willis's work of the era, and was deeply inspired, sort of how he played with light and dark, and how a film negative responded to that. And while we shot on digital, I worked with Stefan Nakamura, who was a colorist, to create a LUT that was very that emulated, the film of the era.
On top of that, like, what did you do color wise to kind of help, further this kind of disturbing thriller feeling to it?
Well, the LUT added quite a bit of green into the shadows, cyan and green into the shadows, and warmed the highlights. And I pushed that further while we were shooting, with CDLs on top of the LUT, to really kind of crush it down and make something that was very almost monochromatic feeling. And I think it
Mm.
feels very desaturated, while our base didn't end up being extremely desaturated. I think we were working in a very monochromatic color palette, and also with the art department, and creating a set and that didn't have a lot of varying colors, and that
Mm.
the overall color palette of what we were shooting was very controlled when we were on set. And yeah, I think I pushed it even further in the final color correct, than maybe what we started with, in terms of the extremely green shadows,
Mhm.
and kind of a lifted shadow look. And I also, while we shot on the Lexus 65, mostly for lack of depth of field, but also like I like the idea of using a large sensor and very vintage lenses, especially the ones that aren't really made for the 65, that tend to like really fall apart around the edges, as though we were, making a documentary at that time, with lenses and camera equipment that maybe wasn't really capturing it with all of the clarity. I like the idea of like a real fall off around the edges that gave us an aesthetic of 1960s photography.
Yeah. Are there any scenes or setups that, were a particular challenge or that you're really proud of how you were able to pull off?
I mean, I feel like, the entire film was really challenging. We had a really tough schedule, and I think both Matt and I had very high expectations. Matt Ruskin, the director, and I had very high expectations for every set.
Mm,
So there was, we worked tirelessly using references and floor plans and constantly shot listing and reshot listing to really figure out how to best tell the story with the camera and to do it in a really tight schedule. It was a tough shoot, and there was a lot of using practical locations.
mhm,
Um, Sometimes you see one direction in a location and the turnaround is actually in a different location.
mm,
And that desire to use these practical locations and also budget limitations. But I think it created an aesthetic that we were really, that I think Matt and I are both really proud of.
yeah. So, what's it like to be nominated for an ASC award for your work on this film?
I mean, it's really humbling to be nominated by your peers. I was nominated for an Emmy for the film also. But I have to say that like this one is really special to me. Partly because I just joined the ASC.
Right. Yeah.
So to sort of simultaneously be nominated for my first ASC award is like, it's really humbling. It's one thing to be a part of something that might feel a little more like a popularity contest. But when your peers nominate you, it's really quite humbling.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. Those are really the things I wanted to ask you about the film. Is there anything I haven't asked about that you'd like to share?
No, I mean, I think the only other thing that I can say is that, I had an incredible crew on this. We shot in Boston, and I was lucky enough to have an incredible gaffer and key grip. And, my camera operator, Ari Isler, was nominated for an SOC award for the film. My focus puller, like all of these people are really the people that made the movie.
Mhm.
And I'm just sort of the conductor, and I really just feel so lucky to work with such talented people. Yeah, I feel very lucky.